Thank you for participating in this training. If you are watching this video, then you should be a campus leader who will be responsible for helping support Title IX sexual harassment complaints at your campus this year, specifically principals, associate principals, and assistant principals. Our goal is to understand the role of Title IX coordinators, investigators, and decision makers. It is important for your school community to know where to turn should an incident involving sexual misconduct occurs. Because each campus might assign the role of Title IX coordinator differently based on their staffing availability, the advertisement might simply be a reminder for allegations of all sexual misconduct should be reported to a campus administrator. Please reach out to the district Title IX coordinator and your executive director in all circumstances involving students while being on your campus as it relates to sexual harassment. A formal complaint occurs when there is an allegation of sexual harassment. The victim or the parent of the victim may request the school to investigate the complaint. A complaint may be initiated with an email, a phone call, or a signed statement for a student, or it can be initiated by the district Title IX coordinator. So, what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is defined as sex based conduct that includes one of more of the following: sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, stalking, gender based harassment, bullying, unwelcome conduct, and employee conditioning that aid the benefit or service on the participation of unwelcome conduct, also known as quid pro quo. Here are some examples of issues that fall under Title IX: sexual discrimination, gender based discrimination, gender based harassment, gender based bullying, gender based assault, sexual harassment, domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, retaliation, harassment based on sex or gender stereotypes or the student's perceived sexual orientation. Title IX issues also impact our LGBTQ students. This includes harassment based on sex or gender stereotypes or the student's perceived sexual orientation, sexual assault or violence, and failure to accommodate transgender students. Who should you contact when you have a Title IX complaint? For all Title IX complaints involving employees, please contact June Melvin and the Executive Director of Safety and Security. Title IX complaints when parties involve students only, please contact Brian Lyons. If there's an issue involving students and employees, you may contact June Melvin, Brian Lyons, and the Executive Director of Safety and Security. What prompts an investigation? What prompts an investigation is an actual knowledge of sexual harassment, and it is determined that it happened within the school's education program, such as in the hall, a school restroom, on a field trip, or in a locker room. If any of those instances occur, you should begin your investigation. If the misconduct occurs under the school supervision, you should initiate the investigation. Your initial response to a report or allegation of sexual harassment. Once you have the initial response, this is a critical time during the investigation to offer supportive measures to the alleged victim and alleged perpetrator. Examples of supportive measures could be a change of class or speaking with the counselor. It is always best practice to consider the victim's wishes when offering supportive measures. Even if the complaint does not rise to the level of a formal complaint, offer supportive measures to both the victim and the perpetrator. Be sure that the supportive measures are not punitive or disciplinary. Let's take a look at your investigation team. Once a formal complaint has been filed, your campus team will have identified the coordinator, the investigator, and decision maker. The investigator and coordinator can be the same person. It is important that these two roles are constant communication with the parties and monitoring the timeline to complete the investigation. Please note that the decision maker cannot be the coordinator or the investigator. During the course of the formal investigation, written drafts and reports will be key features of all Title IX investigations. Your written documentation should refer to the alleged victim as the complainant and refer to the perpetrator as the respondent. Throughout the investigation, you will have a written record of all communication with both parties. There are forms, letters, and templates available to you as you go through the formal process. Please contact the District Title IX coordinator to walk through the process to complete each form. The Title IX complaint form starts the official process. The complainant can submit the form online. The form will also be located on your campus website for anyone to access. The District Title IX coordinator will review the allegation of sexual harassment and determine if it falls under Title IX once the form has been submitted. As mentioned earlier, you will conduct an investigation that will require you to share the findings with both parties. The gathering of all supporting documents will be reviewed to determine if the claim is to be true or unfounded. There will be a draft template available to you once you begin the investigation. A complainant's past sexual behavior should not be taken into account during the investigation. Based on Title IX legislation, it can only be considered other than the respondents who committed the alleged misconduct, or it can be offered to prove consent. Before we go any further, let's take a minute to pause and reflect. Let's review the formal investigation process. Once a student or parent has made an allegation of sexual harassment, you should start information gathering. Be sure to offer both parties supportive measures to determine if the allegation meets the definition of sexual harassment. Contact your district Title IX coordinator for support. Make sure the complainants complete the Title IX formal complaint form with detailed information in the description portion of the complaint form. The district Title IX coordinator will determine if the formal complaint meets the criteria of sexual harassment under Title IX. After the Title IX coordinator has determined if the criteria met the standard, your investigation goes into the second phase. All the evidence of facts goes into a draft report for both parties to review. Once the draft report is complete, send the draft report to the district Title IX coordinator. Both parties have 10 days to review the report and submit additional evidence to be considered before the report is finalized. The school has the burden of proving the alleged conduct by a preponderance of evidence. Using that standard, the burden of proof is met with the party with the burden convincing the decision maker that there is greater than a 50% chance that the claim is true. After reviewing the evidence, the decision maker must determine whether the claim of sexual harassment is true. The decision maker should contact Janice Sandahl, Director of Student Management, to discuss disciplinary actions. Indicate in writing all the allegations, the procedural steps taken, and a conclusion statement of the rationale for each allegation. The decision maker should also include a procedure for an appeal. After both parties have been informed of the decision and the disciplinary action, both parties have the opportunity to appeal the decision. They can submit the appeal to the District Title IX coordinator. The grounds for an appeal include procedural irregularities, new evidence, conflict of interest, or bias that may have affected the outcome. The appeal will be heard by members of the District Administration Appeal Team. Please notify your executive director and Janice Sandahl once an appeal has been requested. All records should be maintained locally for 7 years. This includes statements, evidence, communication logs, decisions, reports, informal resolutions, appeals, and everything related to the allegation. Let's review all of your roles as a campus investigation team. Your campus Title IX coordinator, your campus investigator, and your decision maker. Remember, both your coordinator and investigator can be the same person. However, there can only be one decision maker. Please scan the QR codes and enter in the vital information as you identify your campus Title I team. If you have any questions regarding Title IX or unsure of the investigation process, please contact Brian Lyons, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at extension 28910. I can also be reached on my personal cell phone at 904-504-3362. Thank you for participating in this training. Have a great year.